So real quick, so
Jonathan made an interesting point that I wanted to kind of round back to, and then Mike, I want to bring you in on this because this is specific to you. We talked about this earlier. So the Proud Boys, which is one of these alt-right groups, they're separating now. They're going from the Proud Boys. They're changing their name to the Proud Goys, and I guess the word goys is a Hebrew word to mean Gentile or non-Jewish person, but it's a popular word amongst white supremacists to basically say non-white or whatever. But basically, it's internal strife, and the guy who's now leading the Proud Boys, called the former leader, Torrio, I think his name, was an Afro-Cuban. He said that we don't want no niggers in our ranks and gays and so on and so forth.
He's an Afro-Cuban?
No.
The guy who was leading the Proud Boys, that was leading the Proud Boys was an Afro-Cuban in Miami. He was a leader of the Proud Boys. They basically split in two because of internal strife. And the guy who's leading the group, or who's now leading the group, the new group, Proud Goys with a G, basically called him a nigger and said, we don't want no gays in our ranks. Now, my question to you is, how do you feel about people who are Black or Latino in spaces that they're not wanted? Because at some point, Rio had to realize, like, shit, man, I'm Black and I'm an immigrant, or the son of immigrants, in a group that doesn't like minorities and immigrants. How would you guys ever maintain friendships with people who thought that way? Mike, I want to start with you, and then you guys can go ahead. Would you stay in a group and be amongst people who don't want you there? Like, how does that work? How does the mentality work of making the mental gymnastics of being in a group or in a place that you're not wanted? Mike, I want you to start because you have a personal connection, you also being Afro-Cuban, and then you guys can go ahead and comment.
I remember the Proud Boys back in like 2010 or 11, before this thing became an actual thing, and I actually saw documentaries about that thing. And once they replaced that white dude, he left because shit got hot to him after the...
Because he was a comedian or a wannabe comedian.
No. He used to work for a TV channel. He used to do a lot of things. He used to work
I know who you're talking
about. He worked for Vice. Spencer.
He was very big.
Spencer.
No. That's Richard Spencer. He's the other dude.
No. There's another dude. He wears glasses. He got to go to.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
He worked for all these media stuff, but he was a real far right. Okay, maybe then shit got hot for him after the nigga with the tiki torch, the Jews will never replace me. Shit. Yep. When that shit popped up in Charleston, that's when he split, and that's when he brought the. And I kind of knew the shit. But to answer your question, I'm not the type of person that want to be somewhere where I'm not wanted. You know what I mean? We all came from a mile away. So
Gavin McInnes is his name.
Gavin McInnes,
by the way. I'm sorry.
His name.
Yeah, I just found it because Joe Rogan used to. I did an interview with him, and everybody jumped on Joe Rogan.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. So you were saying you don't want to be in a place where you're not wanted. I'm sorry I cut you off. I just wanted to make sure we got the name out there. So you're saying you don't want to be in a place that you're not wanted.
Yeah, and I hate the fact when it's tricky, because I hate the fact when we talk to other people that look like us, when they say they try to act white. There's two ways to go about. You know what I mean? There's you try to act white like Homeboy from the Proud Boys, and then there's you try to be white when we turn it down. AKA, I use big words, or like a character like Carlton Banks, you know, a dude that into quote unquote white things, you know what I'm saying? So I try my hard not to use that kind of word, but those kind of individuals, they're a lost cause, you know what I mean? They want to be a part of something, or for whatever reason, because you'd be surprised, there's certain individuals that never went to like a racial experience or whatever the case may be, and they think the world is just like exaggerating when they talk about police brutality or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Like Clarence Thomas, the dude from the sport. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has a story. You know what I mean? But for me, I cannot affiliate with certain things like that because I don't want to be somewhere where
It's interesting you say that, and it's interesting you said that, and I will say this because you mentioned not being a monolith. A lot of people have this idea that every Black person in America or every Black person around the world has been called a nigger. And there are Black people, surprisingly enough, if you are hearing this, that have never had that happen to them. There are Black people who've never had social
experience. They had cool white friends that never been pulled over by the cops. You know what I'm saying? They love
and it's good that you mentioned that, because I think it's important for us to then talk about that there are other experiences that Black people and Latinos have that aren't painful, miserable experiences about, and I think it's important that we talk about that. But Josh, I want to get your perspective on this about people who function in spaces that they are theoretically not a part of. Like, what would be the motivating factor to that? And then why would they stay in those spaces if they're not wanted, or if there are all these signs that telling them like you're not supposed to be here?
I mean,
have you ever felt that way also? Have you ever been in a space where you were not wanted and for whatever reason you didn't realize that? I mean, I know you went to a PWI. Was that ever an experience that you had?
Right. So, I mean, like at prep school and stuff like that, you kind of feel that. I think sometimes you think that you're in the space for like other benefits, maybe not the social benefits, but like whatever the space will give you, right? So if you vote in Republican, you're thinking about your tax cuts and your business. That's why you're willing to deal with like the N-word and shit just because you're gonna get your tax reduced or whatever, So I think some people are able to maybe put things aside and just focus on what they're trying to get from a situation. So I mean, some people just that's also a position, right? That's always been there, right? Like that dude from Django, right? The house nigga. That's always a position. That's not Samuel L. Jackson. If it's not him, it's somebody else, right?
Who's going to be the closest to the master at the big house,
right? That's kind of reporting back from the problems, right? The people that are causing you problems. There's always going to be that person in between, So it's a position to be filled, and somebody got to fill it,
And so what do you have a problem when you see people that look like you working in spaces that are working against you? Do you exclude them from the community? If there's a Dominican who's out there working,
like Candace Owen, right?
Do you exclude her from the barbecue? Do you ignore her and say, no, you ain't getting no sancocho, right? Because she's at the White House.
Sancocho at the barbecue, Lewis.
I'm just
Hold
on a second. Before you say anything, black folk love some sancocho. They might not know it, but when
you said
barbecue,
man. Listen, I brought sancocho to the barbecue. No. I brought sancocho to the barbecues. Black folk, they fuck with sancocho. They put that fucking hot sauce on that shit.
Of course they fuck with it. I'm not sure it fits too well in the barbecue thing.
We gotta. I know you asked this for cracking.
Anyway,
we gotta get out of this point where I don't agree. Like before our parents, there were some uncles that voted conservative and they would fight about politics, but they were never excluded from the barbecue. So I don't know how we've grown now. I mean, I understand where people could be like, how can you support Trump? And I understand that, but if you know the person. So some of us hold values higher than their personal gain. Like, for example, I just can't see myself voting for him just because I want my son to be in a better America than I was. I don't want this racist shit that was suppressed. It was here and it has never left, but it was suppressed to an extent. So now you got this guy here and then inciting all this nonsense.
I mean,
why I can't vote for him. And then, but I'm not going to stop talking to somebody because he can't vote because he voted for Trump. I'll have these discussions, even though they're awkward. And then if I notice that he has the same viewpoints 100% as Trump, then there we will be excluded because now
Yes. And that's the thing. This is why I think I'll wait till probably Lou ask that question, but continue on.
No. That was what I was going to say. We need to have these conversations, and we can't exclude anybody unless they have like those same viewpoints that we, as morally, we can't adapt to. So then, then fuck you. Like, no, if you think
so,
with that being said, I'll try to see if I can try to forward because I know Lou's going to ask that question. How can we unite?
No, we'll ask that at the end. But go ahead. You want to talk about it now?
I'll answer that, and you got to continue on with what you're saying. Continue on. My bad. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Josh. I want to hear what you have to say.
So I mean, I went through this thing with my cousins, right? I told y'all, right? I couldn't, right? So if you want somebody in power to like reintroduce like stop and frisk laws, right? Things that we know are just not effective, and racist and ineffective, right? If you telling me you going for that, and every time we talk, things like that come up and stuff, I just don't know how. I just can't have a conversation. I mean, I don't hate you, but I just the shit ends because I just feel like you really are agreeing with something that I feel.
Exactly. I know what you're talking about because Kelvin has this kind of, and I'm gonna let you talk, Kelvin, right now. But we all have maybe cousins who are cops or who are or any other type of. They have these viewpoints where we've had these conversations, and they are stubborn as fuck, and they will not give in. So when you get to that point, when you try to have these conversations, and they don't not give in, and they don't care, and they always le buscan la quinta pata al gato. If you don't know what that means, Google it.
We know.
I'm talking about the listeners, our two listeners that are so
he's talking to the listeners. That was
exactly. So you have these people who don't change, then you know you can't have these conversations. But again, I won't exclude them until like if you're racist, then I can't chill with you.
Listen. If it's a family reunion, we're chilling. Whatever. I come through. The family reunion, you invite me to the party, but I'm not gonna invite you to my party, and that's it. So but hear me out. You can be friendly. You can be friendly at outside my house. It's fine, but my house is intimate, right? So if you come in here. It's because we agree on certain things.
Am I invited to your house, Crack?
So hold up.
Who, Casey?
That's Casey. Hold
on a second, Abram.
Hold on.
No.
So it has to be intimate, like it has to be intimate, like Lou when he invited Daniel over to his house. Like that intimate? I'm just trying to find out.
You motherfuckers are cold, man. Yo, my girlfriend was here when he came, yo, so it wasn't that intimate. Y'all need to chill. Abram, considering that you're the youngest one in the group here, and I think there's a generational gap, do you think that kids...
I got some...
How old are you, Abram? Abram, how old are you?
He's 10.
24.
I'm 37, so there's a huge age difference, and 15 years, 10 years is a big difference. It doesn't seem like it. Do you think that kids your age are more willing or able to forget the differences and come together, or do you think that people your age hold grudges and be like, nah, man, fuck you, Theo, fuck you, grandpa, fuck you, mom?
I think people my age kind of pioneered that fuck you type of shit, like mentality.
They cut everybody off.
To their old ones. I think
cutting everybody off, bro.
Yeah. I think people in my generation or like my years, they definitely cut everybody off. Like they gave no fucks about tradition and nothing like that. I mean, sure, you have a couple of them that are really close and shit, but I think my people's definitely.
Peter, are you inviting people to your barbecue? Actually, let me make it better. You have an opening show. You're about to release your new album. You making your guest list. Are you inviting that one person?
If they paying, I don't give a fuck. To my house, I like to be around people that I can forward the conversation with. If I'm stuck with you for 30 minutes and I'm fucking telling you like, yo, bro, I don't think that this is not a way. It's not. I don't feel like doing that. Yeah, like I don't feel like having to explain to my Dominican family that you're black. Stop being racist.
I'm not black all the time.
I'm not black.
I'm black. So don't tell me that shit. Like no.
So if you have a gay son, you invited your homophobic uncle to the party, man. Come
That's
on.
a good question.
Bro.
That's a good question.
Of course not.
That's a good question.
Oh, I'm gonna invite him, and if he starts smiling the fuck
just
out,
to piss him off.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
You wouldn't put your kid in that situation, man. You're a homophobic ass uncle saying crazy shit.
It's all about respect. It's all about respect. You know what I'm saying? If you got an uncle that has a certain way, and your son, you have the man-to-man conversation. But yo, this is my son. You come to my crib. Respect that. No disrespect.
But the point being that you're addressing that. before it gets ugly, right? Because that's your kid, and you know, we know niggas that just be talking sloppy like that, right? Man, homophobic.
I mean,
suddenly your kid is 12, 13 years old, 14 years old, and coming out gay. You're not gonna invite this homophobic ass dude, even if a tight uncle, and you're gonna have to have that conversation about respect.
Well, so here's on top of the. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Peter. You were saying. I'm sorry.
That was me.
Oh, Kelvin, go ahead. Sorry.
Nah, I mean, like Mike said, you just have that conversation up front. Like, you know, there's a lot of cousins of mine that I don't agree with politically. A lot of them that are Trumpers and shit like that. That a lot of the shit that they say is like, wow, but I'll invite them. We're not having that fucking conversation in my fucking house.
But but you got to be honest though, because it's really about how close you are to the problem that you're talking about. That's what I mean. Like, it isn't that you don't invite people you don't agree with, but it like I said, if this nigga's my homophobic and you have a gay son, then you are not inviting them, and you know that shit is true. Yeah. Right, so it depends how personally connected you are to the topic that you disagree with.
So let me just rephrase the question. So let me rephrase the question real quick, and then we can continue because it's an interesting idea, and I like both sides that you guys are playing. One of the ideas that we're talking about is basically like political opinions. I think the budget should be this. I think the budget should be that. That's always be a debate, yeah. As opposed to, my son is gay or my daughter's a lesbian. They should have the right to marriage, and they should have the right to, certain benefits that married people have. I'll say this. Insurance. But hold on. So we're talking about political ideas on one side, which you can disagree on, and we're talking about the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on the other side. And I'll ask this question: having an opinion on the budget is much different than having an opinion on whether I should have a right to live my life. Do you invite that uncle to your house knowing that he doesn't want your gay son or your lesbian daughter to have those same rights?
A lot of them, it's at least like, let's say from my mother's side,
don't put them out there.
I don't. No. I'm not gonna name anybody, but I don't think we have any gay or lesbian cousins or anybody.
I think
not on your dad's side.
No, on my mother's side. Yeah. On my mother's side.
Do you invite them to the barbecue knowing that they'd be okay if your son or daughter were killed because they were gay? Do you still invite them to the house? Knowing that they'd be okay.
Hold up, you changed it, Lou. Hold up, bro.
You need to relax.
I'm trying to get through my scenario real quick. Lou's trying to amp this shit up to like 100. No. Because the thing is, that's why we call this the Ruckus. Listen, Dominicans are really conservative. They're very religious, and they're set in their fucking ways.
I was gonna say that. Go ahead.
Most of the time, like things like homophobia change when they have someone within their family that's going through that or went through that, and that changes their mind. So that's why I brought up my mother's family specifically, because there's nobody on my mother's side that I know of that's gay or lesbian or bi, or any of that. So they are set in their mostly homophobic ways, and that's because they haven't had a personal relationship with that.
So it goes back to what Joshua was saying.
If having them have an interaction with someone that's in the family changes their view on it, that could be a positive. Now, I understand where Josh was coming from, because then you're putting your child is the one that has to be put in that situation, and it should be up to the child. It should be up to the child at that point if that should happen or not. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones who have to deal with it
within the Latino community, and I think I'm speaking from Dominican experience, but also from the Latino community. I think a lot of us are very religious, and they use the religion, the Bible, or they try to use that as why not they shouldn't like people shouldn't have their rights. But it's what I always have, and like me and my brother. Me and my brother, we always talk about is like, God gave you free will. Who the fuck are you to tell me what and what I cannot do. If God gave me free will, let God judge me. You ain't no judge, bro.
Okay, bro, but let me ask you a question, KC. Let me ask you a serious question. You got kids, right? You got kids. You got a kid. One of your kids in the future decides that they prefer men or women. Whatever.
Not decides.
Or both.
Oh no, excuse me, not decides. Excuse me, I'm sorry, not decides.
People who are bi. Both.
But you have a family member. Let's say your mom. I'm not saying that she is, but let's just, in theory, she doesn't want gay people, and she doesn't care if they die. Do you invite your mom? Listen. I have to.
I can give you an answer right there.
Hold on a second. I have to ask the most extreme questions so that we can get the honest answers. So that's why I go with these. Yeah, got to get spicy at some point. Your mom's is the one who's saying like, "Hey, man, kill the gays." Your dad's saying, man, burn them at the stake. Do you invite them to the barbecue? Do you invite them to the wedding, to the graduation, to be a part of your child's life?
Hell no. If they can't get it through their mind that God gave you free will and you have the right to do whatever you want, and that's what makes him happy, and he ain't messing with you and he ain't bothering you, it doesn't matter. You're not invited. You got to get that through your thick skull, Mom. If you're not for that, you will not see us and you will not see me.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
If she's that homophobic, she ain't going nowhere, man. She be like, yo, fuck that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Peter, no, I'm talking. She may not go. I'm saying, are you inviting Peter? Are you inviting Mom Dukes to the house if she's so against something that you or your children are for? Is she getting invited? Fuck it if she's coming or not. Is she getting invited?
Man, if she making the sancocho, she might get an invite.
Cuban Mike, are you inviting your mom to the house? Fuck your feelings. Cuban Mike, are you inviting your mom to the house if she's saying some off the wall shit that you don't agree with about the way you live your life? Is she getting invited, Cuban Mike?
Like what? My mom said some outlandish like anti-homophobic shit.
If your child is gay, and your mom's just saying burn them at the stake, is she getting invited to the house? Yes or no?
Coming, man. I'm going to with my kids no matter what, man. But I'm lucky I never have to go to this kind of problem because we're not homophobic like that. I mean, we had issues with the family. We had family members in our thing that were gay. That are gay.
Yeah.
And, we had a hard time handling. But then at the end of the day, that's family.
It's still family.
And I'd be damned if somebody from the streets gonna look out more than we are. You know what I'm saying? What they're gonna look like us? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think Bigeloni's
than us, and we blood.
If I had to bet, Bigeloni's gonna say no, but go ahead.
Nobody comes before your kids. Nobody comes before.
What up, Bigeloni? So you invite Mom Dukes to the house if she's saying some outlandish shit?
No, and matter of fact, like how KC, you just mentioned the example. Well, you and Kelvin would talk about how the Dominican and Latino families tend to be conservative and religious and so on and so forth. One of the things that I think gets lost is just sort of this misinterpretation of where that comes from, because people try to go, for example, into the Sodom and Gomorrah thing.
Oh my God!
What used to go? So this is what happened. The original tale, Sodom and Gomorrah. What happened there was that they were sodomizing each other. It was the action that was going on. But what was really going on is that in the original text, the Hebrew and everything, is that they were violating children. They were violating little boys and shit. Mm-hmm. So what they were against was the pedophilia, not the homosexuality, which was a common practice at the time. And that's how they used to do things. Like the Greeks were doing shit back then. Like different peoples and clans and tribes in Africa were doing the same thing. So it's not some shit that was uncommon. People knew about it. People were that they might have not been always okay with it, but they were like, this is an accepted practice because people are like this. The shit is not weird. You know what I'm saying? So in my family.
This is an interesting point, and we'll eventually get to an episode on it. We'll talk about it, but there have been historical accounts of this going on through history. But the reason that I ask about, are you allowing these people to come into your spaces, is because recently with this whole election, I'm circling back and we'll eventually leave this conversation, but I just want to touch on it quickly. The elections brought with it a whole bunch of hate speech, and a lot of the big media corporations were doing a better job, not a good job, but a better job of flagging some comments things that were false, things that were hate speech. And because of that, there is a new social media platform. I think the name is Parler is the name of it, where conservatives or people who call themselves conservatives are going there to say that they are being able to have free speech, which is kind of weird,
It's Twitter for racists.
Yeah, it's Twitter for racists. My question to you guys is this. A, what is free speech? And is free speech actually free? Pete, I want you to start off with that question. What's free speech for you? And do you actually think that speech is free? I mean, do you think that you have a responsibility to be moral with what you say, or are you allowed to just say whatever the fuck you want, fuck your feelings, even if you got some culture?
Oh, man.
Not some culture.
Nah, man. I'm not really trying to get punched in the face like that.
You know why? Like, think about everything. There's also cancel culture out there. You talk about punching in the face or cancel culture?
No, I'm talking about, like, if I say some fucked up wild shit, whether I believe in it or not, just because I have free speech and I think that I can run around saying some fucked up wild shit. When somebody punches me in the face, I can't just sit there and be like, but a free speech, maricón.
That's a great point.
Free speech, but just remember, there's consequences with that free speech.
Of course, like, I'm not
so free speech is not free, is what you guys are saying.
No, it's free, but just be aware of the consequences.
But I don't think
fuck you and your family, freedom of speech.
But I don't think. I will say that I don't think we. I mean, again, I don't agree. Obviously, with some outlandish shit. But I don't know what you're trying to point at, Lou. But we can't. I don't agree with. Prohibiting speech. Because why? Because that will give the government avenues where they will stop you from talking about the government. So that's why
that's an interesting point. We're going to put a pin on that. That's a good point. We'll put a pin on that. Go ahead. And I'll circle back to that in a second. Kelvin, what you going to say something?
No, I was going to say
that vote for Trump.
Go ahead, Kelvin.
There's a point to that, though, is that freedom of speech has nothing to do with someone, there being a consequence for you saying it socially. It's freedom of speech is more of what the government can do legally. For you saying something. A distinction. Yeah, there is a distinction there. Nowhere, it doesn't protect you against any social backlash that happens for what you say, but it will protect you from legal backlash.
I think there's spaces where, like, again, and we can do this transition because I know there's a last question we wanted to ask about comedy. I think the comedy should have, if it's funny, it's funny, and then if a majority of people think again, I think comedy needs to be the way it was before, where it didn't matter what you say as long as it was funny. Yes. It wasn't hurtful.
The thing is like exactly what Kelvin said. You can't stop the public from thinking that joke is not funny.
You can't stop the public from taking shit out of context.
Bro,
Isn't that controlling them?
You can't control the people. If the people decide that the shit is fucked up, then it's a fucked up joke. Don't correct the correct course.
So if we would have went with the people, the last Dave Chappelle special was a 0% in Rotten Tomatoes. It was trash.
Exactly.
Everybody loved it, and he won a fucking
Emmy. That wasn't the people. That wasn't the people. That was
not an Emmy, an Oscar, or whatever.
That was the critics. That wasn't the people.
Those are just
critics, and where the critics lean.
Those are just people
listen,
pushing a
job. Hold on a second.
So hold on, Casey. Then hold on. Casey, but what do you? Hold on. But Casey, what is it that you want to happen then? Like somebody says some racist shit. Then what?
Then they said some racist shit. You know what I'm saying? Comedy's supposed to be funny. What is it, a racist joke?
Exactly.
Take comedy out of
That's like me. That's like me going to the most gangster show in the world. Like me fucking going to like the live show, be like, oh my god, they were talking about drug dealing, killing niggas, and fucking coke and all this other shit. I am offended by that. They need to be canceled. I fucking went to the show. You know what I'm saying?
But it's not the government shutting them down, though. Exactly. It's not even the same thing. The government not shutting down. Dave Chappelle.
Hold on a second.
But let people do what they want to do, though. I mean,
let people do what they want to do. And if you're going to go to an artist that goes to that extreme, thing, change the channel. Don't pay for that money. But don't
if you don't, exactly.
And demand to be canceled because you're offended.
Right.
Let me give you guys a real quick example. In the United States, you don't have. In the United States, you don't have. But here in Brazil, you can actually go to jail and be charged a fine if you call someone a nigger. It's in the law. It's been a law since the 1950s. So since 1951, if you actually call someone a nigger or a monkey or a kike or whatever racial
what about like an abrasive term? Like that's my nigga.
Well, you don't have that in the Portuguese language. But if someone actually found that to be offensive, you go to the police station, write out a report.
You can't do that because then it might be offensive in Rio, but it might be offensive somewhere else, but not in Rio. Like in the Bronx. Hold on, let me just get this point. It might be offensive to somebody in Wisconsin. I mean Arkansas, but it's not offensive to me in the Bronx. To all my boys, that's how we grew up talking. Like all of us here, we say nigga, and half of us we have different shades of black, brown. All of us here. And I don't think you guys feel offended when I say it, but we all grew up in the East Coast. But this is like when people...
Remember, you go to the West Coast, a whole different story.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. Let me say something. That's a really good point.
I don't say nigga next to like some old school Black Americans though. Like I know my lane.
Right.
But look at this. This example. Hold on.
I see it.
Kraken, if me and you are talking, and this guy start walking by us, and he hear us say that, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, you can't be saying it. But me and you are talking. It's like we grew up, and this guy's walking through 145th to 175th, and in the Bronx, and it's gonna tell us not to say it. Like, but in the black community, there's people who don't agree with that word either, no matter how we say it.
Right? No. If some 60-year-old mom a black woman tells me, I don't like when you talk like that, I will respect that. I'm like,
it's not even a 60-year-old woman. It's people
I agree with that too.
That we don't rock with it like that. And that's the thing we keep putting on us about. There's people
like our age that we don't rock with the word.
Oh no, right.
Well, that's what
I've seen it.
That's what I was gonna tell KC. I'm like, bro, I've seen myself in a mirror. I know that no matter how much explaining I do, or the fact that it doesn't matter where I was born or where I grew up, they're never gonna see it that way. So I knew from the bat, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be saying this shit. Maybe I need to unlearn.
Ain't nobody policing that shit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No, it's not about policing it, Abraham. It's about knowing that, like, yo, like maybe. Yeah, it's not about policing. It's like I know what I look like. Like I don't have a fucking hood password around my neck saying like, yeah, he could say nigga all he wants. Nah, like it's like, all right. Nah, I know what I look like. I'm not gonna sit there and explain every single time that I feel like talking. So it's like I need to unlearn this word. Maybe you know what I mean. It was cool when I was a kid. Right. You know, I grew up. I grew up out of it. It is what it is.
That learning is more effective than trying to power through it and be like, I can say whatever I want.
And being stubborn about it. Right. And then, you know what I mean? I'm not going on stage now and being like, no, I have to fight for the word nigga because I grew up at the... No, let me just
when I was in college, hanging out with the ball players, all these black dudes, I wasn't dropping the N-word like that. You know, these are dark-skinned black dudes from the South. Like, you know, you just know your role. You know where your limits are.
No, like for the past year specifically, I've really like been trying my hardest to get that that word out of my vocabulary. Just because of what the word is, like it has nothing to do whether anyone.
So you're in agreement that you want to get rid of the word in general.
No, it's not. It's not that.
No. I'm not forcing nobody to do it. I think everybody should put themselves to it and do it themselves. I'm not saying everyone has to do it. No, I'm not about policing anybody. People say it all the damn time around me and whatever. As long as you're not white.
I have a friend of mine who's half white and half Puerto Rican, but he's all white. He speaks no Spanish. He didn't meet his dad or anything like that. So he says he's half Puerto Rican, but I'm like, dude, you can't say that. Like even me, and I'm not the darkest person in my job, and I was like, dude, you can't say that here. Right away. Yeah, like at the job, I'm like, dude, you can't say that. Even funny. Me, I was like, dude, you can't say. You got a 700 credit score. You can't be throwing that word out.
You're above the nigga fast.
Tell Fat Joe he can't say that. I was gonna say that. Tell Fat Joe he can't say that.
No, I'm not out here policing anybody.
Bro, that man used to be his wife. I'm not telling him shit.
I love Fat Joe, bro.
He gonna fucking kill me.
Fat Joe got the Latin kings on the side. He has.
No, he has, bro.
No, you police.
You
police fucking big pun shit.
No, you police yourself. Don't worry about policing anybody else.
No, but so Casey.
I don't know, dog. When I see, what do you mean? Don't worry about policing other people, bro. You just said except for white people.
Except for white people.
Well, they can't say it, Abram. That's clear.
Yeah.
There's people today, guys. There's people today advocating that. Why can't we say it? And then like what?
No. I'm specifically talking about people that grew up in that environment.
White people grow up in that shit too.
Since they were children.
I want to take advantage.
It doesn't matter. They know.
Real quick. I want to take advantage of real quick, and I want to make a distinction. And I've made this distinction before. The word "nigger," the way that we use it, that is not black language. That is language of the streets, where a lot of black people happen to be around. And this is the reason why Joshua said earlier that he's not going to say that word around a 60-year-old black person, especially from the South, because that word has a specific meaning. If you grew up in the streets, even if you grew up in New York, if you grew up in Boston, that word nigger comes from street talk. And I think it's important that we make a differentiation that not all black people grow up on the streets. Some black people grow up in suburban places.
That's true. And that's why I'm talking about like people that grew up in that environment. So if you
it
has nothing to do with color or race or anything. It's
a lot of white people just don't
like to use it.
Yeah, and a lot of white people did not grow up around where we grew up. But the other thing is that a lot of times
there's
white
another
people,
thing, like even if you were raised in like the suburbs and shit, you still probably have family in the city.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, but that's not fair because you're in the suburbs. You come over here. Hold on, Abram. You come over here on the weekends. In the weekends or Thanksgiving, and then you think you could throw that word around. It depends. Like you can tell when somebody doesn't talk that way. You can tell because they don't really like.
Yeah, because we tend to give people a pass, depending on where we know where we're coming from, and I think what KC is speaking to is that I think a lot of times we don't necessarily trust where white people are coming from when they use certain language. And I think that's how all of us feel. Like, we just don't know if that white person actually is trying to be slick and call us a nigger.
Yeah.
Or if they grow up around white people. But I want to circle back around because Casey made an interesting point about free speech. And if we start cutting off free speech, it's going to give the government an opportunity at another point to take away rights. And I think that's I personally think it's a legitimate argument.
El más berraco.
I know what you're thinking. Where can I find more? For full episodes of the Ruckus podcast, you can check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and your other digital streaming services. The Ruckus, it's organized chaos. Don't worry, we're working on getting Mike a better mic. Get it, Mike? And don't worry about it. You'll get it eventually.